For our final award, please welcome to the stage the chairman of the board of the New York City Housing Authority, Jamie Rubin.
Thank you to CHPC for letting me speak about my great friend Liz Glazer and the amazing work that she and Josh Greenman and Greg Berman are doing at Vital City. Before I talk about Vital City, though, I do want to ask your indulgence to make a couple of comments about a prior awardee, which was Rich Bury and Alec, and the Charter Review Commission. Under their leadership, the Charter Review Commission did an extraordinary job putting New York City back on track to make up ground in its housing shortage and give the new mayor some tailwind as he entered office. The ballot questions they put forward were the result of two qualities not always found in the same place: great practical intellect. The commission and its staff were absolutely loaded with brains, and the willingness to listen carefully to all sides before making a reasoned decision. Of course, once the questions were in front of the voters, politics came into play. Rich and Alec had to step aside for that part, but many others came forward. Governor Hochul very much among them, as well as many people in the audience. The voters were convinced to ignore the waves of disinformation and nonsense and pass the questions overwhelmingly because there was a smart, clean, but aggressive campaign. Vital City came along 3 years ago and helped set a tone among policymakers for an effort like this to be successful. Every issue of Vital City radiates smart, practical policy, open-mindedness, and political savvy. Liz and Josh and Greg create space for the voices on every side of all the most important issues, and some of the smaller ones, bedeviling New York City to make their case to the people who will ultimately decide. Their writers use evidence, experience, and a deep understanding of what actually works to argue their side of the case. You may not always agree with those articles. You may disagree with Ed Glazer or Vishaan Chakrabarty or Nicole Gelinas, but you will absolutely learn from what they have to say. The secret ingredient in Vital City, however, the factor that gets you to eat some policy broccoli, is the quirkiness. When I was growing up, which was longer ago than you might think, the New York media world had an incredible group of talented writers with unique voices. You could open a newspaper on any given day of the week and read them on any issue. Jimmy Breslin, Pete Hamill, most of you have no idea who I'm talking about, but I'm just going to keep going anyway. Jimmy Breslin, Ron Molis knows. Jimmy Breslin, Pete Hamill, Red Smith, Russell Baker, and even on Sundays, Albert Shanker. Vital City is committed to publishing some of today's more unusual voices in a way that nobody else is. They've even given me the chance to host a podcast with them, and while I'm pretty boring myself, I'm doing my absolute best to further the cause by looking a little bit beyond my own nose for guests. This is the exact right time for Vital City. Our city needs every ounce of clear thinking, smart policy, and political savvy presented in a voice that people can understand. Thank you for giving me the chance to honor my great friends at Vital City, and I welcome them here.
Thank you, Jamie. I have to say I feel a little bit of fish out of water. My background is in public safety, and there are essentially 4 of us in the city of New York, and we've all grown up together. So before this, I asked Jamie to give me just a quick tutorial on housing and what it's all about. And he told me about the sections, a lot of sections, 8 and 9. He told me about all the letters, ULURP, the 5 most terrifying letters in the English language. He told me all of you are housers. But I have to say, it wasn't until the doors swung open that I realized that you guys are kind of the Academy Awards, and in public safety, we're kind of repertory theater. So I'm just incredibly honored to accept this award on behalf of Vital City and my co-conspirators, Josh Greenman and Greg Berman. And what Jamie didn't mention is that he has a fantastic podcast with us called After Hours. If you want to hear Jamie's kind of lounge singer voice, that's where you should go. But I have to say I was also a little surprised because we did start out in life as a public safety journal, and I'm pretty sure that CHPC isn't really focused on that. So when I got the call from Howard, I thought, oh yeah, this is a joke, there's been a mix-up. But on second thought, I thought, no, wait, this makes total sense because Vital City and CHPC actually have a lot in common. We started Vital City about 4 years ago and motivated really by a pretty simple desire to improve governance in New York City, which sounds simple, but anyone who's spent time doing the unglamorous, under the sink with a wrench work of actually trying to run the city knows that it's anything but simple. And to do it right, you need data about what's working and what isn't. You need to be open to good ideas, no matter where they come from. You need to steel yourself to trade-offs and compromise. Government, maybe democracy, is the world of second-best choices. And so we built Vital City to be a place where knowledge could live and breathe and be useful. Not a traditional think tank, not a newspaper, but some hybrid we haven't quite figured out the name for, so Don Draper's in the audience, please see me afterwards. But a policy venture that takes seriously and honors how hard it is to govern well, that trusts readers to handle complexity and brings together people across a broad political spectrum. And if that sounds familiar to you, it should. Because CHPC blazed that path in 1937, and it's been delivering ever since. So I'm not an expert, obviously, in housing policy, but I know this self-evident truth that decent housing is the central strut in building a productive life. But housing in New York is a wicked problem. Whether it's building enough to outrun that terrifying vacancy number or trying to solve the especially complicated problem of housing people who have lived on the street, often for years. Solving the housing problem touches every kind of urban conundrum, not just wending your way through ULURP and permitting and other delightful rules and regulations that are denser and more opaque than Heidegger, Hegel, pick your favorite German philosopher, but also the joys and complications of design and architecture, the sometimes villainy of politics and money, the perplexities of culture, and so much more. And you can't understand, you can't solve housing without understanding all that. And that's what CHPC does, is lead the way to policy through understanding. And at Vital City, we talk a lot about the fact that safety is rooted in civic vitality. A lively and safe neighborhood isn't just about a well-run precinct. It's about how the streets look and feel. It's about what you do with vacant lots, park where people actually want to sit. And housing is an essential ingredient to a healthy city. And when we fail to build enough or to preserve what we have or to make it genuinely affordable, we're not just failing to solve an economic problem, but we're making our city more fragile and less vital. So I just want to say thank you so much, not just for this award, but for the example that CHPC sets and for the decades of careful and independent research, for the willingness to say true things that are sometimes hard to hear, and for the conviction that policy, even when, and especially when it's slow and technical, that it matters. So CHPC is 88 years of rigor, institutional knowledge, moral heft. Vital City is a handful of people in a room with laptops and a shared belief that while New York's is the greatest city, it can also be better. And so we're honored to stand in the company of all of you today.